Some betrayals arrive with fireworks. Mine arrived on a Sunday afternoon while I was fixing a fence post, and it came wearing my daughter's voice. The call came at 2:52, her name on the screen. I wiped my hands on my jeans and answered like I always do. "Hey, sweetheart. Dad. We need to talk about the farm." Not hello, not how are you. Straight to it, the way she does when she's already decided something and just needs me to catch up. Marcus and I have been going over the numbers, and we think it's time to sell the back 40. Maybe the whole property, honestly. You've got until the end of next month to figure out where you're moving. I want you to understand something before I go any further. My name is Walt Reeves. I'm 68 years old. I spent 31 years running heavy equipment and building fence line for half the ranchers in this county, and I raised one daughter, Claire, mostly by myself after her mother left when Claire was 7. I built things with these hands my whole life. I built a house. I built a marriage that didn't survive, and a daughter who did. And for the last 11 years, I built something on 40 acres outside a town called Hendricks Mill that nobody, not one living soul, except a man named Otis Grady, ever knew existed. But we'll get to that. This is a story about two properties, one daughter I loved enough to forgive almost anything, and a son-in-law who mistook my patience for weakness. Welcome, family. Pull up a chair, because this one's got some turns in it. If you're new here, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from tonight. The property everybody knew about sat on Coldwater Road. 18 acres of pasture and hardwood I bought in 1988 for $11,000. Back when $11,000 for raw land felt like throwing money into a well. My late wife Donna thought I was out of my mind. "Give it 15 years, I told her. She laughed and told me to make sure I still had enough left over for groceries. I built the house on that land board by board, mostly alone, over 4 years. Claire was 5 the summer I poured the foundation. She used to sit on an overturned bucket and hand me nails like she was performing surgery. That farmhouse became everything. Every Thanksgiving, every summer she came home from college. When Donna got sick in 2016, that's where we spent her last spring, the two of us on the porch swing, not saying much, because some silences don't need filling. When Donna passed in 2017, that farmhouse turned into something sacred, a place where I could still hear her humming in the kitchen. What I never told Claire, what I never told a living soul except one man, was that 4 months after the funeral, I bought a second piece of land. 40 acres, out past Hendricks Mill, 22 miles northeast, land nobody in my family had ever laid eyes on. By last year, Claire was 34, married 5 years to a man named Marcus Doyle, who sold commercial insurance and had a talent for spending money he hadn't made yet. I loved my daughter with everything in me. I want that understood clearly before anything else. But I'd watched Marcus work on her, slow, patient, the way water works on stone. He'd bring up the future at every family dinner. He'd ask about my plans, with a smile that never once reached his eyes. I noticed. I didn't say a word. That Sunday afternoon phone call, the one that started everything, that wasn't the beginning. The beginning happened 3 days earlier. Marcus called me on a Thursday. His voice had that rehearsed lightness, the one people use when they've practiced a speech in the car. "Hey, Walt. Got a minute?" "Sure thing." I set my coffee down. "So Claire and I have been talking. Here it comes. About the farm." "Okay," I said. "What about it?" "The Coldwater property. Look, you're out there alone on 18 acres. The taxes have gone up 2 years running, and when's the last time you actually replaced that roof section over the equipment barn?" "Last October." "Right. But Walt, the market's insane right now for rural acreage. We had somebody look at comps. A realtor, actually. Rhonda Pierce works out of the county seat. She thinks we're looking at 420, maybe 450 if we list before winter." "We had a realtor. When did you talk to a realtor, Marcus?" Silence on his end. "We just wanted the full picture before we brought it to you," he said. "So you'd have real numbers." The full picture. My son-in-law had a realtor lined up before he had my permission. Let that settle for a second the way it settled on me. "Is Claire in on this?" I asked. "We both think it makes sense, Walt. Put her on." Shuffling. Voices low and muffled. Then Claire, quieter than usual, already halfway to apologizing before she'd said a word. "Hey, Dad. This your idea or his?" We talked about it together. That's not what I asked. A pause I could feel through the phone. Marcus brought it up first, but I think financially, it could really help us out right now. Help them out, not help me. I picked my coffee back up. I've heard enough for today. Dad, don't be like. I'll call you back. I hung up. I sat on my porch for the better part of an hour, just me and a barn cat who doesn't much like anybody, and a kind of quiet that has actual weight to it. Was I angry? Not right away. Was I hurt? Son, hurt doesn't begin to cover it. 68 years old, and my only child had gone behind my back with the man she married, hired a realtor, and started pricing out something I built with my own hands before either of them thought to ask me a single question. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being past 60. You stop reacting. You start deciding. I went inside, poured a coffee I didn't need, and sat down at my kitchen table. I opened the bottom drawer, the one Donna used to call my quiet drawer, on account of nothing loud ever came out of it. Inside was a folder. Not the Coldwater deed. Claire knew about that one. This was a different deed, a different piece of land entirely, a different story that hadn't been told yet. I read it slow, though I had every word memorized, and for the first time all week, I smiled. 3 days later came the 252 phone call. Claire's voice, flat and rehearsed. Dad, we need to talk about the farm. Marcus and I have been going over the numbers, and we think it's time to sell the back 40. Maybe the whole property, honestly. You've got until the end of next month to figure out where you're moving. We're doing this whether you agree or not. I let the quiet stretch out long enough to make her uncomfortable. Then I asked, Claire, honey, which piece of land do you think I'm standing on right now? Nothing for a second. 2. 3. What are you talking about? You're at the farmhouse. I didn't say that. Then where are you, Dad? Exactly where I need to be. I leaned back against my truck's tailgate. Out there on land she'd never once set foot on. Land that didn't exist as far as she knew. You and Marcus, go ahead and list Coldwater. You do all that. Talk to your Rhonda Pierce. Get your comps. Dad, that doesn't make sense. Makes plenty of sense. You're just not used to me saying no. I hung up again. Let her sit with it. Now, let me tell you about the other 40 acres, because this is where the story bends. 4 months after Donna's funeral, back when the grief still had teeth, I got in my truck with no destination in mind. Just me, a full tank, and the kind of gray March sky that makes everything look like it's already given up. I ended up past Hendrick's Mill, down a gravel road that thins out until it's barely a road at all, where the pines grow close enough together to swallow the afternoon light. There was a place for sale out there. A ridge lot, elevated above a spring-fed pond, which matters more than city folks understand. The structure wasn't a cabin. It was a real timber frame lodge, 2 stories, a stone chimney, a covered porch that wraps the whole west side, so every evening the sunset comes right through the windows like it was built for exactly that. I bought it in July of 2017 for $210,000. Donna and I never bought a thing in our lives we couldn't pay outright, and that habit didn't die with her. Marcus would have called it old-fashioned. Marcus had opinions about a lot of things. I put that lodge into an irrevocable trust and named it after Donna. The Donna Reeves Family Trust, with myself as lifetime beneficiary. A separate estate lawyer out of the city handled every document, not the family lawyer everybody knew. I told exactly one man on this earth about that land. Otis Grady, my oldest friend, a retired county assessor who'd read land records the way some men read scripture. Otis kept that secret for 7 years and never once asked why. That's what an actual friend looks like. For 7 years, Claire and Marcus circled Coldwater, asked about my plans, priced it out in their heads like an inheritance already spoken for. And the whole time, the real prize was sitting 22 miles away, quiet, patient, waiting on me. The Coldwater listing went live on a Tuesday. Otis called me within the hour. Walt, it's up. Listed with Marcus Doyle as authorized contact. Asking $440. I let out a slow breath. How fast is it moving? Already got 2 showings booked. That land's clean, good road frontage. Might move in a month. Let it run, Otis. You sure? I'm sure. You're a hard man sometimes, Walt Reeves. I'm a careful man, I said. There's a difference. Now here's what Marcus didn't know. what neither of them knew. I was on the cold water deed with Claire and Marcus both, an arrangement I'd set up years back thinking it'd simplify things down the road. What I never explained to either of them was that joint ownership on a deed in this state doesn't mean any one party can authorize a sale on their own. Every owner has to sign at closing. Every single one. Including me. Rhonda Pierce either didn't know that or didn't check close enough. She took Marcus at his word that the family was aligned, listed the property, and had an offer inside 3 weeks. A couple from 2 counties over, Hal and Denise Whitfield, looking to retire onto some acreage. Good people, from what I could tell. Wrong deal, through and through. Their offer came in at $430,000. Marcus called me so excited I could hear it in his breathing. Walt, we got an offer. 430. We just need your signature on the closing paperwork. There it was. Do you? I said. It's just a formality. You're a co-owner, so all 3 signatures are required. It's just how it's done. I let that sit a second. Marcus, you remember what I asked Claire on the phone Sunday? What? Which piece of land I was standing on. That question. It matters more than you think. And I hung up before he could ask why. Closing got scheduled for a Monday, 9 in the morning, a title office in the next county over. Marcus called me twice over the weekend to confirm, once just to ask if I needed directions. 20 minutes from my own house. He thought the old man had gone soft in the head. I was there 15 minutes early. Marcus walked in wearing a sport coat he doesn't own the confidence to fill out. Claire, 2 steps behind him, hands twisted together the way she does when she's uneasy. The Whitfields were already seated, pleasant enough people, Hal with the handshake of a man who'd been dreaming about this land for weeks. Rhonda Pierce sat at the head of the table with her folder open, efficient. The title officer, a woman named Grace Lohman, had documents stacked neat as bricks. I sat in the corner with my coffee. Marcus saw me, and I watched the tension drop clean out of his shoulders. He crossed the room, hand out. Glad you made it, Walt. I shook it. Wouldn't miss it. Grace Lohman started her opening remarks. Rhonda uncapped her pen. Hal Whitfield leaned in. Ready. My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer, a woman named Priscilla Wren out of the city. Ready when you are. I stood up. Every head turned. Everything all right, Mr. Reeves? Grace asked. Apologies, I said, calm as Sunday morning. There's a call I need someone here to take. I looked straight at Rhonda Pierce. You, specifically. She blinked. Me? You. Marcus half stood. Walt, what's... Sit down, son. Something in my voice made him sit. I stepped into the hallway, called Priscilla, and 30 seconds later walked back in and handed Rhonda my phone. I watched the color drain out of her face as Priscilla talked her through it. Watched the pen roll out of her fingers. Watched a woman realize the whole transaction she'd built was standing on air. This closing cannot proceed, Rhonda finally said, and now she was looking at Marcus, not me. There's a co-ownership requirement that wasn't verified before listing. Hal Whitfield's chair scraped back. I'm sorry, what? The property can't legally transfer without unanimous written consent from all owners on the deed. That consent was never obtained from Mr. Reeves. Should have been caught before listing, I said quietly. That's professional language for this is your fault, and everybody in that room understood it. Claire turned to me slow, the way you turn when you already know what you're about to see. Dad, what did you do? I took a sip of coffee. Your mother used to tell me I think 6 moves ahead and never tell a soul. She meant it as a complaint. I set the cup down. Turns out it was a compliment. We haven't even gotten to the part about the lodge yet, I said. Nobody in that room had ever heard of the lodge. And that right there is where the story really begins. The Whitfields left with a legitimate claim for their inspection costs and appraisal fees, and Denise squeezed my hand on her way out and told me she was sorry this had happened to me. Rhonda left without shaking anybody's hand, already dialing her broker. Grace Lohman gathered her papers with the quiet efficiency of a woman who'd watched deals collapse before, and within 3 minutes it was just the 3 of us, me, Claire, and Marcus. Marcus found his voice first. So that's it? You let it get all the way here? You let us list it, get an offer, sit at this table, and you just let it happen? Yes. You could have stopped it after that first phone call. I could have. I could have. Why didn't you? I leaned forward. Because you needed to see it. not hear it, all the way to the end. I held his eyes. You hired a realtor before you asked me a single question. You signed a listing agreement on land with my name on the deed. And then you called my daughter's phone to tell me I had a deadline to leave land I built with these two hands. He had no answer for that. Sit down, I told them both, not unkind, just final. I stood at the head of that table and looked at my daughter, and the man she married really looked at them. I pulled the chair out and sat back down, because I wanted to be eye level, father to family, not a man delivering a verdict. I'm not going anywhere, I said. I'll be on Coldwater land every fall, the way I always have. You're both still welcome there. That hasn't changed, and it isn't going to. Claire's eyes went wet at the corners. Marcus, the Whitfields have a real claim here. Not against me. Against you, since you're the one who signed the agreement and shook Hal's hand on land you had no right to sell alone. Priscilla figures their damages. Inspection, appraisal, travel, legal costs. Somewhere around $16,000 to $20,000. His jaw went tight. That's not the end of the world, I said. But it isn't nothing either. I waited until he looked up. And your firm's going to hear about this, Marcus. A licensed agent listing property without verifying ownership doesn't stay quiet in a business built on trust. Something crossed his face fast, like a shadow passing. That's between you and your career? I said. I won't interfere, but every consequence sitting at this table has your name on it. Not Claire's, not mine, yours. Because you moved first, and you moved without asking the one man whose name was actually on that deed. I turned to my daughter. Claire, I know this wasn't your idea to start. I know Marcus came to you with it half built already, and you went along because disagreeing with him has never come easy for you. That matters, and it doesn't excuse it either. You're 34 years old. You knew something wasn't right the second you heard about a realtor before your father did. I could hear it in your voice. I know, Dad, she whispered. I know. Good. I reached into my jacket and set a single, folded page on the table between us, and let it sit there a moment before I said another word. I spent yesterday morning with Priscilla, I said. We made some changes. What kind of changes? Marcus asked, and his voice had lost every ounce of its Thursday morning confidence. The kind a man makes when he decides he needs to be more deliberate about his legacy. I kept my voice even. The Coldwater property, the land you two listed, the land you handed strangers a price tag on without my knowledge, I've restructured how it's held. It's now inside a trust in my name only. Both of your names have been removed from the deed as of yesterday afternoon, recorded at the county courthouse. Dead silence. You wanted to sell it so badly, I said. Now you can't, because it was never really yours to sell. Now, the paperwork agrees with that. Marcus's hand curled into a slow fist on the table, not violent, just a man absorbing something that actually hurt. And the lodge? I went on. The Donna Reeves Family Trust. I updated the beneficiary designations yesterday, too. I unfolded the second page and slid it across so both of them could see it without reaching. Otis Grady's granddaughter runs a land conservancy out of the capital. They protect working forest land, keep it wild and open for public use. When I'm gone, that 40 acres goes to them. The air went out of that room slow, like a tire losing pressure rather than blowing. Marcus stood, walked to the window, same view of the same parking lot, though everything behind it had shifted. A conservancy, he said flat. A conservancy, I confirmed. Dad, Claire's voice cracked. How much is it even worth? I want to be precise about what I saw cross Marcus's face right then, because it wasn't rage, and it wasn't the sting of a man caught scheming. It was something raw. Something I hadn't seen on him since the day he first stood in my driveway, 26 years old and nervous, asking permission to marry my daughter. It was appraised last month, I said. $1.1 million. The number landed like a stone dropped into still water. I watched it ripple across both their faces. That land, I said slowly, giving every word room to land. The one neither of you knew existed, sitting on a ridge with a spring pond and a porch that catches every sunset for the rest of your lives. That was going to be your inheritance, Claire. All of it, eventually, when I was gone. Nobody said a word. You were about to help sell Coldwater for $430,000, I said. Split. After the realtor's cut and the mortgage on your place Marcus was hoping to clear, that's maybe 180,000 to your name. You traded $1 million inheritance for a fraction of that because you got impatient and rushed a timeline that was never yours to rush. Claire made a small sound, not quite words, the sound that comes out of a person when something lands somewhere they weren't guarding. I wasn't hiding that land to punish either of you, I said quietly. I bought it because, after your mother passed, I needed one thing in this world that was only mine, something that still felt like her, something nobody could put a dollar figure on and argue about at a kitchen table. I always meant for it to reach you eventually. You just changed the timeline, and in doing that, you changed the destination. I buttoned my jacket. 1,000,001, I said, one last time, not to twist anything further, just so it was real. That was going to be yours. I hope 430 was worth it. I picked up my coffee, cold now, and drank it anyway. You're still my family, I said. Both of you. That part doesn't have a deed number. Nobody can list it or show up at a table and take it. But it has to be earned back starting today. Marcus, call your broker before they call you. Claire. I looked at my daughter. Go home and sit with what you learned about yourself today. Don't run from it. I walked toward the door. Behind me, Claire's voice broke apart at the edges. Dad. We're sorry. I turned. I know you are, I said. I know. Priscilla was waiting in the hallway, leaning against the wall, hands in her coat pockets like she had nowhere else on earth to be. How'd it go? She asked. Like it needed to, I said. We walked out together into a cold, bright afternoon. I sat in my truck a minute before I turned the key, then drove northeast, past Hendricks Mill, down that gravel road the rest of the world doesn't know about, and pulled up in front of the lodge as the last of the daylight went gold across the pond. I sat on that west-facing porch a long while. Just me, the water, and the kind of quiet that costs nothing and means everything. Donna, I thought, you'd have had plenty to say about all this. You'd have shaken your head at Marcus and cried right along with Claire and told me I was too calculating for my own good. Then you'd have handed me a sandwich anyway. I poured a drink and raised the glass toward the water. This one's yours, I said out loud. All of it. Always was. The pond held still the way it always does. Patient, unhurried, settled, same as the man who bought it. Coldwater Land still stands where it's always stood, and it carries my name now, and only mine, the way it probably should have from the start. Marcus called Priscilla 3 days later about the Whitfield's claim. Settlement landed around 18,000. He paid every dollar of it himself. His agency put him on probation pending review. They're working through all of it, which is more than I expected, and about what he's earned. Claire calls me most Sundays now, just to talk. No numbers, no angles, just her voice and mine for half an hour, the way it used to be before money got tangled up in everything. That's a start, and a start is all I asked for. The lodge stays exactly where it's always been, up on that ridge, facing west, inside a trust nobody can touch. When I'm gone, it goes to people who'll take care of it the way it deserves. Otis came up for a weekend not long ago. We sat on that porch and watched frost creep in along the edge of the pond and didn't say much of anything for a long stretch, because that's what real friends and real places have in common. They don't need a lot of words. They just need to last, and this one will. If this one hit home for you, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and tell me down in the comments where you're watching from tonight. I'll see you next time, family.